Hey everyone, today we're diving into something really powerful, a way to guide behavior that's not about punishment at all. It's all about building skills. And honestly, it can make a huge difference for pretty much everyone, kids and adults alike.
Okay, let's be real. Are you just tired of timeouts? If you're a parent, a teacher, anyone who works with kids, you know that feeling, right? Some tricky behavior pops up, and the go-to is often a timeout or taking away a privilege. But you have to wonder, is there a better way, a more constructive way to handle things?
Well, there is, and that alternative is called differential reinforcement. I know, it sounds a little clinical, but trust me, it is a total game changer. Why? Because it completely flips the script. Instead of zoning in on what's going wrong, it's all about actively teaching and encouraging what's going right. We're talking about building kids up, not just shutting a behavior down.
So what does that actually mean? Let's break it down. At its core, it's actually pretty simple. It's all about rewarding the behavior you want to see. And when you do that, guess what? It happens more often. At the exact same time, you're making sure the behavior you don't want to see, well, it doesn't get any kind of reward. And over time, it just kind of fades away.
And just to be super clear here, this is not punishment. We're not talking about timeouts. We're not talking about taking away things a kid has already earned. That's sometimes called response cost. No. The focus here is always on teaching. It's about proactively reinforcing a better way to do things and strengthening skills, and doing it in the gentlest, least intrusive way we can.
Okay, so that all sounds good in theory, right? But how do you actually do this in the real world? Well, it really just boils down to a pretty straightforward three-step method.
First up, and listen, this is absolutely the most critical part. You have to play detective and figure out the why. Why is the behavior happening? Is it a tantrum to get a toy, or is it a tantrum to get out of doing homework? See, the motivation behind it changes everything. Once you've got the why figured out, then you can teach a better way to get that same need met, and you reinforce that new way immediately. And what happens over time? The new positive skill just gets stronger and stronger, and the old one starts to disappear.
All right, theory is great, but let's be honest, seeing this stuff in action is where it really starts to click. So let's dive into some real-world examples to see how this plays out.
Okay, for our first scenario, picture this. A child who isn't speaking yet. They see a toy they really want, and the only tool they have in their toolbox right now to get it is a full-blown tantrum. So the why is pretty clear, right? They want to get their hands on something.
So how do we handle this? The problem behavior is the tantrum. The desired alternative? We could teach them to point to a picture of the toy. So here's the magic. The moment they point to that picture, boom, they get the toy. That's the reinforcement. The tantrum, on the other hand, it doesn't get them the toy. It doesn't get reinforced. It doesn't take long for the child to realize, hey, pointing is way easier and faster than all that crying.
All right, next up is a classic you've probably seen a million times. A child has to do something they really don't want to do, like homework. And what happens? A meltdown. Now, notice the why here is different. It's not about getting something, it's about escaping something.
So, what's the plan? Instead of the tantrum, we teach them an appropriate way to ask for that escape they're looking for. Maybe it's a little card they can hand you that says, break. Or maybe it's just learning to say, I need a break, please. And here's the key. When they use that new skill, we honor it right away. They get the break. So they still get what they need, but they've just learned a much better, more functional way to ask for it.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and look at a different type of situation. Think about a behavior like hand flapping. The strategy here is a little different. It's about teaching a replacement behavior that's, well, physically incompatible, something you just can't do at the same time. For example, let's say a child is hand flapping a lot while they're walking in line at school. We could teach an alternative like folding their hands or putting their hands in their pockets. I mean, you literally can't flap your hands if they're in your pockets, right? They're incompatible. So whenever we see them walking with their hands folded, we give them some praise or a high five. We're reinforcing the behavior that physically blocks the other one.
But, and this is a really important point, we have to be careful. We always have to go back to that number one rule. What is the why? If something like hand flopping is actually serving a purpose, like helping a child self-regulate or express excitement, and it's not getting in the way of their learning, then you know what? We might not need to intervene at all. Context is everything.
Now, this whole approach isn't just about swapping one behavior for another. You can also use it to change the rate of a behavior, either slowing it down or speeding it up.
For instance, think about a kid who just inhales their food. The goal isn't to get them to stop eating, obviously. It's just to get them to slow down a bit.
So how could you do that? Well, you could set up a system. Maybe you say, hey, after you take 3 nice slow bites, you get to watch 30 seconds of your favorite show. If they start eating too fast, the show gets paused. See how that works? The reward, the reinforcement, is tied directly to the pace of the eating. It's a great way to teach a little self-control.
And finally, let's look at the flip side. What about those good behaviors that you wish you saw just a little more often?
This might actually be the simplest one of all. You've got a shy kid who rarely participates, or a kid who almost never remembers to do their chores. The strategy is simple. You catch them doing it right, and you reinforce it. The moment that quiet kid raises their hand, you give them positive feedback. The day they do their chore without you asking, you make a big deal out of it. It's all about building that positive momentum.
So, when you pull back and look at all of this, what's the big takeaway? It's really about a fundamental shift in how you see behavior. It's about stepping away from that constant cycle of correction and punishment.
And this right here, this is the core idea. The goal isn't just to stop a behavior, it's to build a better, more effective scale to put in its place. You have to remember, almost every challenging behavior is just a signal. It's signaling an unmet need or a skill that hasn't been learned yet. This whole method is about teaching that skill. It's not about stopping, it's about building.
So, I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. The next time you're faced with a behavior that's driving you up the wall, try to pause and reframe the problem. Instead of asking, how do I make this stop, ask yourself this: what skill can I build right now in its place? That one tiny shift in your thinking, trust me, it can change absolutely everything.